My name is Ashley Shull. I grew up in faith. I was saved when I was 13. I wouldn't say we were like living for the Lord, but we understood that the way to heaven was accepting Jesus as your Savior, and we walked that out the best that we could in our family. What drew me to the father of my child? That was a time in my life where I was very lost, and I was insecure, and I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was looking for, I think, security, to be affirmed, giving that over to someone else since I couldn't find it within myself at that time. And though saved, I didn't have a relationship with the Father, so I wasn't getting affirmed by Him, so I was looking for others to affirm me. I think too, I was young. I was 16. You're just trying to figure out life and make sense of things, and I came from a lot of trauma and instability in the home, and just trying to find my way and distract myself in some ways. And I was almost intrigued that supposedly this was the popular guy in school. We didn't go to the same school together, but he was popular at his school, and because he was so popular and so good looking, that how in the world would he be interested in me? So it was a lot of flattery and almost like, wow, this guy would actually be interested in me, and it intrigued me. So I was looking for love in all the wrong places. When he found out that I got pregnant, he was actually happy about it. He was excited. I was devastated, scared, and I didn't want to talk about it. I had already gone into survival mode and problem solving. That's kind of all I knew growing up. When there's a problem, we need to fix it. And so I was ready to fix it and clean it up and deal with it. I didn't know how, but our responses were completely different. He was welcoming of it. I was not. Whose idea was it to get the abortion is almost, it really wasn't an automatic idea. It was actually something that I didn't think on. It was more like, how do I solve this? And what does that look like? I did not tell my family that I was pregnant, so I was not getting any feedback from them. But I did have someone I dated for a very, very long time. I was close to their family, and they actually really wanted me to stay in relationship with their son. I wouldn't say that they encouraged me, but they were willing to support any decision that I was willing to make. So I would say that a person did not encourage the abortion. I would say fear motivated me to seek out to take care of things. When I think about the logistics of the abortion and just the process and how it ended up getting to that point, I was so paralyzed with fear, and I was so in shame, and I didn't want to tell my family. I was embarrassed. I just wanted to clean up the mess. And it's been so long ago. I'm trying to even remember how I figured out where you could even have an abortion. But I did logistically work out with my boyfriend's mother to take me. So I didn't have to tell my family. But a lot of that is such a blur. Honestly, I mean, first I've even thought of it since. Like, how did I even get the address? And I don't know. I remember it was prom. It was prom night. The issue is that I had a long-standing boyfriend at a time, and we were kind of off and on. And then I conceived by this other guy, and it was almost like I was caught up in the middle of two worlds, and I was just embarrassed that I had went to prom that night, and it was just an awful prom because all I could think about was what was going to transpire the next day. And I was just in a perpetual state of fear, but I felt like it was my only choice. So I think I guarded myself and held a lot of stuff in, out of sight, out of mind, getting there. The reality of what I was doing is what came once I got there. And I really feel like that's what I'm supposed to share with the women. The times that we live in, abortion is so glorified, and we don't talk about the realities of what transpires in these clinics. But I think it's important as women. I feel like a big part of why I'm sharing my story and going outside of the uncomfortableness of the shame is that women need to know what really happens inside a clinic. It's so glorified and supposedly so easy, but it's something I won't ever forget. I think I'm grateful for the grace of God and being saved, and despite the sin and where I was in my life, God never gave up on me. He was always pursuing me and after me. And even in a very dark place, He was with me. And I remember the first thing I saw when I went in there was the waiting room, and how many women were sitting in the waiting room, and how many were so casual about it. At this point, I am sobbing. Leading up to getting there, I think I had hardened myself, thinking that it would go away. But when I got there, it's when everything hit, and I saw the women in there, and it seemed casual. I was grieving and crying. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew it. But I felt like I had no way out. I was in so much shame and fear. And I remember one of the girls encouraging me, like saying, well, this is like my second or third. And I was just like, I was so taken aback. I couldn't imagine it was bad enough where I was. And that really hit me and stung me in that moment. And then when they called me in the back and started taking my blood work, and I'm sobbing because I know I don't want to do it, but I don't feel like I have a choice. I'm too scared to go home and tell my parents, and I'm just embarrassed. And the nurse was just very nonchalant. It's no big deal. You don't need to cry. It is a big deal. It was a big deal. It still is a big deal. I remember going in the room. I remember the poster on the wall that we're supposed to look at to distract ourselves. I never got an ultrasound. Nobody tried to talk me out of it. They took my money. Don't worry about it. Really, I was feeling it, but I was treated very casually about it. It was painful procedure. I actually had to, have the DNC type operation. I want to say I was like 7 or 8 weeks. And then going into the waiting room and all the girls in there just crying, and it's like a horror movie. It's awful. No one's in there and feels liberated. You would think that you're going to get free once you take care of your sin, but it just birthed more sin and more condemnation and more guilt. I didn't feel liberated. I didn't feel better. And I left and took a few days to heal and get back on my feet. And I still ended up telling my family what I did not long after, because it was too painful to lie and to hold that in. And I know it was by the grace of God. But there's such a lie going around about abortion being glorified and somehow you get liberated and free from it. But all it does is birth more sin and more trauma. And I left there empty on every side. An empty womb, more traumatized in fear, trying to escape what had to be confronted anyway. And now I've lost my child. When I think of coping after, I don't think I did. I was so traumatized that I needed to tell my mom. My mom and I were really close, so keeping anything from her was really hard. And I felt like I just vomited all over her. I was like, Mom, I did this. And Mom's reaction was utter shock and devastation. And she was more upset with me that I didn't tell her than anything. She's obviously upset about the loss of the child, but she was really upset that I did that alone. And I felt like that I had to. That I felt like I couldn't go home and talk to her about it. At least talk to her about it and make an informed decision. So I think in some ways she might even felt betrayed and maybe injured, maybe wounded her as a mother. You feel like your own child can't come to you and talk to you about something like that. My relationship to God at that time, Holy Spirit, though I didn't know at the time, but looking back now, He was so present with me there. The grief that came over me, the remorse that I was feeling, though I wasn't brave enough to put a stop to it, He was there. He was already giving me eyes to see and a burden about what was going on inside the clinic. I never felt condemnation from Him, but He was there. He was there. Even though He was close in the moment, like afterwards, that was when the waves and the intensity of the guilt came. And then it was like, it's easier not to talk to God than to talk to Him, because I would have to face something that I didn't want to. The accuser of the brethren, that's when he began to really come after my identity. I was already insecure. And then it was like, how could you do that? You got yourself in this mess and then look what you did. You're not worthy of love. He bombards your mind. Then you start really believing it. God has had His finger on me since I can remember. And I always had a barometer of high morality And I just couldn't lie. I just could not lie. And I had to live in truth. And I actually, when I think about God's redemption and how he was pulling me out of the dark place, I remember driving down the highway. I actually wasn't even thinking about the abortion, but he brought it to mind and he invited me to receive healing from him. And I think I actually remember going to get my driver's license. It's funny the things that you remember. Once I started kind of recalling what had transpired, I just remember weeping and sobbing on the highway and repenting for what I had done. I knew it was wrong. I knew that I didn't want to, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. And I felt him inviting me in to receive his forgiveness, to confess what had happened so I could get free of it. And so I did. On the highway, driving. I just cried my eyes out. There is nothing. There's no sin. There's nothing that will ever separate you from the love of God. And my advice to other women and young girls that are in the same situation that I was in, there's a better way. There are answers. There is help. And don't let fear paralyze you and manipulate you and intimidate you into thinking that that's your only choice. There's someone you can talk to. Don't let fear hijack your brain.
Have you been through any sort of healing where you've gotten to either learn the name of your child who's in heaven or see him or her?
Actually, earlier today, I had some prayer to see about seeing my child, and I saw a boy. Pink boy. Well, I've got two other really beautiful, handsome boys, and he looks a lot like them. I actually saw him wearing a tie, which makes sense to me because I always wanted to dress them up when they're young and look cute, because when they get older, all they want to do is wear gym clothes. The tie seems to have represented justice, that he would have been some sort of attorney or in legal, and that he would have been an advocate for life as well. So he's actually rooting on his mama right now for what she's doing. I get to be his voice now. When I think about what I would say to him upon entering eternity in heaven, I mean, the first thing I want to say is I'm sorry that I didn't advocate for him like I should have. I'll probably be like I am right now with my children. I just want to grab them by their face and look at how beautiful they are and just love just take in his beauty that I didn't get to experience here on earth. And when I say beauty, I don't just even mean superficial. I mean, children are they're just so beautiful and intricate and detailed. And I just want to look at all his features and, what he looks like, and just enjoy what he looks like and hear his personality. And does he even sound like me? Does he have an accent like me? Not all my kids sound like me. I just want to embrace him, give him the embrace that he deserved. wow, he should have been on earth. I think for a long time I've not thought about him, not because I don't care, but because I think it was easier not to, because I just felt bad about what I had done, and so I just kind of didn't think about it. And it's not until you start having kids, as I've gotten older and now have kids, that you go, wow, what I've lost. But now that the Lord has positioned me to stand for life and to pray for life and to advocate for life, he's like at the forefront of my mind. Like, he's now giving voice to all the children that either were lost or women are now considering having an abortion. He can now give voice to them. So now I think of him in that regard, like, he was stolen from me, but this is a way to give his voice back purpose. So he's with me. He's with me now. And that's why I'm doing this. I want to honor my son, and I want to see other women who have endured the pain of abortion be brought back to life. Their voices, giving their children voices, and bring purpose to something so terrible. Because God is a redeemer. He works all things for good. And there's nothing more honoring, and I feel redemptive as my son's mother, to open up and be honest about what I've done, so that now his life has a purpose still here on earth, and therefore will birth purpose in others, because they'll be able to tell their story and give their children purpose, and with the eternal view that many other babies can be saved when they truly know the truth of what abortion really does and what it is. I sit here with this white linen on in the righteousness of Christ, not proud of what I've done, but I sit here free and liberated and without shame, because I partnered with the greatest exchange, and that was Jesus, where he died for me. He died for the sin of abortion and gave me his robe of righteousness. And I don't live with any shame or any regret anymore. I'm a free daughter, which gives me the freedom to speak about this. And you can too. But you fully can't walk in the redemption until you tell your story. You see, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So I've been shamed and silenced for 22 years. So God gets glory, not from the ugliness of the story per se, but he gets glory because you get to see what it looks like to be blood bought and redeemed and not have to walk in shame. And then he turns right around and puts you in the quiver of, you're an arrow in his quiver, and he shoots you out. And now is using my voice to be a source of life to others. Shame is all about bondage and shutting you down, It's time to use our voices, to give voice to the voiceless, and to give voice every time a woman tells her story. Some other woman is being empowered, and another child is being honored in heaven. And that's important to me. So I didn't get it right when I was 16. I've been washed by the blood, but I'm going to get it right now. And I'm going to advocate for my child. And I'm going to advocate for women. And I'm going to look at you in your face with no shame and no guilt, the greatest exchange ever by the blood of Jesus, and say it's time to tell your story too.